is this?
Santa Maria, cosa ho fatto adesso, signora? Qual è il problema adesso?
You may rattle on and on all you wish, my friend, and I still will not understand you. I speak only the Italian of Dante.
It's 1922 London when we open in Act 1. It's just after World War I, and it's a sad time. People are just still, I mean, so many men were killed in World War I, and so the atmosphere is just very sad, very gloomy, and it rains constantly. And the young woman, Lottie is her name, thinks that there must be more to life than simply wondering what your husband wants for dinner tomorrow night and the night after that and the night after that. And she reads an ad in a newspaper, in the London Times, that advertises a castle in Italy in April, and the castle is covered with wisteria and sunshine. And it appeals to her so much that she just thinks she sees herself there. But she can't afford to go by herself, so she talks a total stranger into going with her, and that still isn't enough, and so they need two other women to split the cost of this place.
In fact, Mrs. Wilson was telling me something of your dancing on tables.
In Paris.
Really?
You must be very tired then. Well, whenever I see moderns such as yourself, I always see a certain weariness. Modernity being such a shifty beast.
Yes. Have you received many replies to your advertisement?
To an odd disappointment, I'm afraid. Only two.
The other is from a Mrs. Clayton Graves. Do you know her, Lady Caroline?
No, I don't believe so.
I mean, this is a really radical thing to do. They're going to go without their husbands. And her point is that sometimes if you wish something so hard, you can make it come true. And that's so Act 1 is recruiting the other ladies to go, and then in the last scene of Act 1, telling the husbands. And
that must have been pretty unusual for 1922.
Very, very unusual, I think. Yes, yes. And but the driving spirit of the play is this character of Lottie, who is a pretty advanced thinker for her time. She just thinks that you can accomplish anything if you put your mind to it. In Act 2, we're in Italy, and it's a completely different atmosphere. It is a completely different set. It's just golden sunshine and flowers everywhere, and in this atmosphere, in this new location, the four women, find things about themselves that they never knew existed, find a new kind of freedom, and to the point where they find that they really want their husbands to come too. After a few weeks of being there themselves, they want them to come too, and the husbands come and things work out. This is really a romantic comedy. It doesn't, the Act 1 doesn't look like comedy, but comedy in the traditional sense, in that things work out in the end. That's what comedy is. And so we see a rebirth, a renaissance of character, and it's a really beautiful thing to watch. It's lots of fun.
It looks as if you have nothing on underneath.
I haven't.
How very imprudent, and how highly improper.
But there are no men about, so how can it be improper? Have you noticed how entirely difficult it is to be improper without men?
I play the role of Mrs. Clayton Graves, my husband. I'm a widow, and I'm looking to spend a month in Italy with some other women, mostly because I'm cheap. I'm trying to cut expenses, and just to get away.
From what I've seen, it looks like you're putting on airs like maybe you aren't. You have money.
I can't. Yes, my father traveled with all the great men, the writers of his time, Carlyle, Arnold, and Tennyson, and that's how I grew up. So I have an air of superiority about myself, I guess.
So, tell me about the play. Why should people go to see it? Is this a drama? Is it a comedy?
Well, a friend of mine asked me the same thing, and I guess it's kind of a dramedy. There are poignant parts. It's a kind of coming of age, if you will, eccentric people and sad people and how their lives can change.
We were going to choose the nicest rooms for you.
We've done that.
And we were going to make them pretty with flowers.
Costanza has seen to everything in her way.
Mrs. Graves and I arrived yesterday morning. Together.
Rose, look at this place.
Basically in the first act, there is no set. And so that the set, which is a very elaborate set, in essence has to disappear for the first act, and then be there in its full splendor for the second act. So we have to do some things that normally we don't have to do, and find ways to hide the things that are sitting in front of that black drape that they're using for Act One. It kind of contrasts within the show the difference between post-war London with the rain and gloom in the winter, and then as they come to spring on the Italian Mediterranean with the flowers and the trees and the splendor that goes with all of that.
So do you have an idea in your mind? You read the play and then you have an idea as to what you want to do, or?
Yes. I'll take a look at, I may have seen the play, I'll research what other people have done, looking to see what worked and what didn't, or what works for our space or what doesn't. And then, take a look at then what are the options that we have. And then usually we'll start working with the director. If we have specialty things like there is here, I'll consult like our head of our art department.
When I woke this morning, I prepared myself to accept whatever I found, but I could never have imagined. Oh, the flowers, the snapdragons and periwinkles and daphnes and irises and lavender, cherry trees, and wisteria, Mrs. Graves, simply tumbling over itself.
Yes.
When we're doing something as elaborate as this, we try to bring in all of the help we possibly can. This show is also very heavy in sound cues. Chuck Burnham is handling that for us, and big job. We also will play with some scents with this show. When especially
You like SCENTS?
Yes, the smells. Yeah. So the smells of the Mediterranean. We'll deal with some with
really?
flowers, and it's something that isn't done a whole lot at the community theater level, but it is being done more and more lately. So we'll begin to explore that and see what we can do, and see how effectively we can do that, and try to incorporate that into the show as well. Basically, the idea is we want to take you to Italy with them for the second act. And because that the first act has been in front of blacks and so austere in post-war London, and all of a sudden, and then when they're in Italy, it's just completely different.
Like going to color on The Wizard of Oz.
Correct. Very, very, very similar.
So, but I understand it's not done, and that there is going to be like a fountain in there. Is that?
We're going to put a fountain on the one wall near where the hole in the wall is right now. That's where that goes. Basically, just one piece of many. There's still we got a Spanish tile roof going across that center area that still needs to be made. This is quite possibly one of the larger sets I've ever done. I don't think I've ever. I don't recall anybody, nor myself, going up as high as we are with this one, all the way around. So it's very unusual in that regard too. How
do you do this and keep it within a community theater budget?
This is really difficult. I've done it for a long time, and so I've personally squirreled away lots of stuff that are hard to. Over the years, you begin to recognize what is hard to come by and what isn't, such as the columns that we're using on the stage. Tim Dorman procured those for us maybe the summer before. And so that when we have an opportunity to get some of these things, we get a hold of them, and then you hang on to them. The windows are, I know, scavengers, and so you get the windows from them. You're looking at, if we had to build a set from scratch, there's probably a couple of grand in it easy. We'll have, if we go over, $600 or $700, I'd be kind of surprised. But it is a large set. Also, too, we plan it as we plan a season. We keep in mind what's coming up. So. Earlier this year, we did Little Shop of Horrors, and with that one, I started going up higher, anticipating this, and some of the materials I used to do that, I have a hold of to make this. So This is, you plan well ahead of time for it, especially the big hard ones. And you have to get it in the schedule right. It takes cooperation within all of the Art Center to make that happen.
So can you go to them and say, could you do this play first when they're planning the season? Because it'll be...
When we plan the season, they consult with me because that goes back to, how much we're going to do for a given set. Being in a community arts situation, we don't have a budget that allows us to do that for every show. So we have to kind of pick and choose where we're going to fight our battles. And this year, we decided that we were going to take Little Shop of Horrors and we were going to take Enchanted April, and we were going to do a lot with them. Partially, then as we chose the season, we looked for a couple of other shows that didn't require a lot that we could then mix in with that.
Oh, and sunshine. Heaven. Look up heaven, Rose.
Yep. When we're doing an elaborate show, very seldom is it done before Friday afternoon. And the only real way we had to combat that is if we simply did less, which obviously we don't want to do. Cutting it close has its own little stress-filled moments with it. But when it works, works well.
I think everybody could see themselves in one or the other of these characters. We all have a little bit of, should I say baggage, and sometimes it's best to just kind of spread it out on the seashore and let it just change shape.
I'm an old woman. I need a space to myself.
But this is a sitting room, Mrs. Graves.
There's another room that you and Mrs. Wilton may use downstairs, to the back next to Costanza's room. I must have quiet. Are your bedrooms acceptable?
Cozy.
There were 2 beds in mine, filling it up unnecessarily, so I had one removed.
That's why I have 2 beds in my room.
I have 2 in mine as well.
It's made it much more agreeable, but yours must be Lady Caroline's second bed. She also had hers removed.
I see.